This is CBC Windsor News. I'm Chris Henson. Katerina is away this week. We start in Washington. Tariffs have rocked the financial markets in the United States as President Donald Trump continues to attack Canada's sovereignty. Today, Premier Doug Ford took his pitch to end the trade war to the country's capital. CBC's Mike Crawley reports.
In the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump is asked whether he'll back down from the tariffs he's slapped on Canada.
No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars.
And then, alongside the NATO Secretary General, he talks about annexing a NATO member.
Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S., just a straight artificial line.
Not the most encouraging tone for this Canadian delegation arriving in Washington to talk tariffs with Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Canada exists, completely feeds off of the amazing economy of the United States of America. Let us build up our steel and aluminum so that we can protect ourselves. And by the way, we protect Canada.
Still, ahead of meeting Lutnick, Ontario Premier Doug Ford takes his anti-tariff message to Trump's favorite news channel.
Why attack your best neighbor, your treasured ally, that we're your number one customer? So this does not make sense. I mark my words, it will hurt the American people.
Hailing from Michigan, I do have a special appreciation for Canada as a neighbor.
The trade war was also a topic on Capitol Hill during the Senate confirmation hearing for Trump's pick to be the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra.
We know how to make this work. Now let's do it and apply our experience to the priorities that the president has outlined. Freer, fairer trade, so that we can actually grow the business relationship between Canada.
Hoekstra gets a bit of a rough ride in the hearing from Democratic senators questioning Trump's trade war against Canada and his rhetoric about annexation.
Would you agree that Canada is a sovereign state and should not be even jokingly referred to as the 51st state?
Thank you. Canada is a sovereign state, yes.
So while that could be read as a more diplomatic approach toward Canada from the would-be ambassador, he didn't touch the 51st state part of the question. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Washington.
And leaving that meeting, Premier Ford said that it was a good meeting and that more are scheduled. A Michigan congressman that represents Detroit is co-sponsoring a bill that would prevent the U.S. from invading Canada. Sharif Andahar is one of the backers of H.R. 1936. It's also known as the No Invading Allies Act. The aim is to prohibit funds for the armed forces to engage in operations to invade or seize territory from Canada. He says the legislation is needed at this time, especially as it relates to Canada.
Because we are so concerned that this president isn't honoring the traditional friendlier relationship with our allies. And we want to ensure that he does not take liberty with such issues, such attacks, and he abides by Congress's power before he takes any kind of acts or aggression that would not be in the best interest of both the countries.
They call us a hard pivot there, Colette. Welcome back to the program. Beautiful day out there weather-wise. What are things looking like?
Yeah, they're looking pretty good in terms of, we were talking about the warm-up today, and certainly we've been experiencing that. But just showing you again, here we are at 12 degrees. Those temperatures 10 degrees and more warmer even than the Windsor temperature. And that kind of mild air, not quite as extreme, but warmer air is still coming our way. So the temps pick up even more as we go into tomorrow. And we are looking at mostly clear skies tonight, too, for the lunar eclipse. So for tomorrow, how about 20 degrees? Let's see if we can do that with some high, thin cloud. But there's lots of active weather in the weekend, and I'll have the details coming up.
All right. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, we've been following the legal battle over a provincial law that centers on moving seniors out of hospitals and into long-term care homes. Here's Jennifer LaGrassa with the latest.
The court battle against a controversial long-term care law is over. Advocacy groups that brought the case forward won't appeal the decision by an Ontario court to throw their challenge out.
It's very disappointing and really heartbreaking.
The Ontario Health Coalition and the Advocacy Centre for the Elderly had filed the charter challenge against the law, Bill 7. It's the More Beds, Better Care Act, and it was passed by the provincial government in 2022. It allows hospitals to put people into long-term care homes they didn't choose, or else pay $400 a day if they stay in hospital. The advocacy groups argued that the law violates the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but the province has said that this law is necessary to free up hospital beds. The charter challenge was heard in September, and a decision in January dismissed the case. The justice said the law doesn't go against people's rights and that the $400 charge isn't coercive.
These are elderly patients. They're on fixed incomes. $400 a day is $12,000 a month. That is beyond the means of the vast majority of people in Ontario. It really means that they don't have a choice.
And I've spoken to families who have received large bills under this law. They've said that the policy is unfair. The groups can't financially afford to appeal the decision, having spent close to $200,000 fighting the current case, but they say they're not giving up.
The fact that the solution has been to target patients rather than to deal with the capacity issues in our health system, it's wrong. It's morally wrong to treat people at the end of their lives in that way. So we have to fight with everything we have to force political change.
In an email, Hannah Jensen, spokesperson for the Minister of Health, said in part, yet again, the Ontario Health Coalition, a group of professional complainers, shows that they are out of touch. While they continue to accomplish nothing as they have for the last decade, our government will continue to build on the progress we have made in reducing wait times for critical surgeries, expanding access to home care, and building a record number of new hospital and long-term care beds. The Ontario Health Coalition says it will continue to advocate for patients and push the government to improve the healthcare system. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Ontario is seeing a massive surge in measles, with cases more than doubling in just the last 2 weeks. Public Health Ontario is reporting 372 cases since the outbreak that started late October. Nearly 200 of those cases came in the last 2 weeks. 31 people have been treated in hospital, including a child who needed intensive care. All of those people were unvaccinated, except one person whose vaccination status was unknown. The Public Health Agency is attributing this outbreak to transmission among unimmunized children and teens. Measles is a highly contagious virus with symptoms that include fever, a red blotchy rash, cough, and watery eyes. The number of cases reported in Ontario over the past 5 months, almost 4 times what the province saw between 2013 and 2023. We at CBC Windsor have been staying up to date with the cases being detected in the region here. We have a list of possible exposure points that you can find at cbc.ca/Windsor. Well, the West End was popping today. Hundreds showed up to a block party at Stag, the Sandwich Teen Action Group. There was food, pool, and some bigger conversations about life and opportunities.
So in partnership with Windsor Police and CMHA, we have been doing very strategic health fair initiatives to really build community capacity and connect services to the community. So we thought, what better opportunity than to promote a family wellness youth event over March break to help with food insecurity and just provide a safe space for kids and families to hang out and spend the day. Stag was amazing and opened up their doors to us and allowed us to come and just take over their space and allow family members and kids from our neighborhoods of the West End and our Glengarry community, as well as the Welcome Center, to come and spend the day here.
I think it's a great thing for parents who might be struggling, whether they need counseling or information with help finding housing and different resources in the Windsor city area. There's basketball, video games. They're offering free haircuts and different fun things going on. And I think there should be something that happens like maybe every couple of months, just to check on people and see how they're managing in these times of the economic, with the cost of living and the groceries being so high.
food insecurity is a very real issue, as well as gang and gun violence. And so we, as a community, really are focusing on coming together and strengthening our neighborhoods, strengthening our community partnerships.
I seen it to like my friends. I seen it to, you know what I mean, people around on the block that I know very well. You know what I mean. So it's just like they get caught up into it. My friends got caught up into it. You know what I mean. It's not a life that you don't want to get into. So
there's a bunch of different organizations around. I'm just learning more stuff about like mental health and just different. That's not just basketball and sports and life. Like there's other like opportunities, business-wise. There's something to talk about business, and there's like the MH program where you're just teaching about like financial literacy and all that. So just good to learn more stuff.
Justin Trudeau's time as Canada's Prime Minister is coming to an end. Mark Carney preparing to be sworn in soon, and he's bringing in a new cabinet. Ashley Perk has the story.
Behind closed doors, Justin Trudeau's wrapping up his last full day in office. The Prime Minister posting his farewell online, titled One Last Thing.
I'm proud to have served a country full of people who stand up for what's right, rise to every occasion, and always have each other's backs when it matters most.
His departing message, one of Canadian pride.
This may be my last day here in this office, but I will always be boldly and unapologetically Canadian.
After more than 9 years in power, Trudeau will head to Rideau Hall tomorrow and resign. Then his successor, Mark Carney, and his cabinet will be sworn in.
This is a group of people that need to be ready to face the threats that we are facing from the United States on the trade front.
Sources say after he won the Liberals' leadership race on Sunday, Carney's been planning a much leaner cabinet, a team of 15 to 20 ministers laser-focused on fighting the trade war and this promise.
Change that builds the strongest economy in the G7.
Sources say these 3 ministers handling Canada's response to the trade war are among those expected to be part of Carney's cabinet.
It will be his prerogative to tell us who will be a part of his next cabinet.
Sources tell Radio Canada Stephen Guilbeault will be moved to a new role in cabinet, but he wouldn't say today.
I have served Canadians as their Minister of Environment and Climate Change, which has certainly been the privilege of a lifetime for me.
Mark Carney's transition team is currently planning what his first few days as Prime Minister will look like. Sources say he's expected to trigger an election sometime this month, sending Canadians to the poll at the end of April or early May to decide if he should be the one to lead this country in a time of turmoil. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The University of Windsor held its annual celebration of nations today. We swung by to check it out.
Come in and then celebrate the nations, all the cultures with us.
Understanding that we all look different, we all may speak different, but in the end we can come together, learn from each other, such as our languages, our food and history, maybe even stories. And without an event like this, I don't think it would happen to this scale.
It has been our 15th anniversary since all these policy change, all these new things coming in. A lot of people, a lot of students here, they have a very weak sense of belonging. So this is an event where we try to kick off people's sense of belonging, asking them to come in, to come out and celebrate and even showcase their culture.
I think that the whole world is going through transitions, great transitions. So dilemmas, existential dilemmas. It's about sharing culture. It's what Canada is about, inclusivity. But I would say Albania is a country that has been endowed with great things. It has a wonderful landscape, but it has also wonderful people who are willing to accept the others. So that's what it is all about, sharing what we have with the others and kind of transmitting our own culture in a country which is inclusive.
So what we're trying to do is really bring that sense of unity. And Islam isn't something that is supposed to segregate individuals. Rather, it's supposed to unite individuals. And when you actually look at it in the Muslim faith, it's composed of so many different cultures.
So from U.S. tariffs to Canadian recession, economists fear that's the road that we may be on and that it might be a short drive. The CBC's Chris Glover takes this look at what might lie ahead.
There'll be a little disturbance.
Donald Trump is firm his tariffs will not cause a recession.
I don't see it at all.
But business and political leaders are not so sure.
There's an irrational man who's at the head of the world's largest economy, and he's willing, I guess, to sink the entire globe into a recession.
It's a self-made recession by one person.
And economists are watching closely as North American stock markets have been tumbling.
The stock market's typically a leading indicator, and that's not done very well in the last few days.
What are the chances that Canada is going to be in recession this year?
The chances of recession seem pretty high to me.
The technical definition of a recession is 2 quarters of negative growth in a country's GDP, but the C.D. Howe Institute takes more into account, including employment data, product orders, and building permits.
there's a lag to that data. So we very well could find out that that this first quarter was the beginning of a recession.
Canada exports roughly 70% of goods to the States, and each day $2.5 billion USD crosses the border.
There's going to be a readjustment period with supply chains, how connected we are. And so I think it's very likely, if these tariffs are in place, that we're headed for a period of turbulence here.
Economists say there are 3 areas we can control right away. Monetary policy, like the additional interest rate cut we saw from the Bank of Canada. Immediate government policy, like expanding EI. And structural solutions, like removing provincial trade barriers and finding new international markets.
You're going to need all 3. Hopefully that will help with our dependence on our exports to the U.S.
How can we recession-proof ourselves in the middle of this economic moment?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, Canadians have been hit by 3 pretty significant negative economic shocks over the past 5 years.
Those 3 economic shocks: job losses from COVID, high prices with inflation, and high interest rates. And just like with them, the advice in a recession is to insulate your finances.
Right now, if you're in a relatively good position, reduce as much as possible your debt.
In the past 20 years, CD Howe says we've dealt with 2 recessions, the U.S. housing crash in 2008 and the start of the COVID pandemic, causing a recession that CD Howe says only lasted for March and April of 2020.
It was a self-imposed shutdown, right?
Okay.
So what's different, this was worrying this time around, is that big bump is unlikely to happen unless the tariffs are sort of pulled away right away. If the tariffs are kind of permanent, yes, they might be one-off changes to the price level, but they're going to have knock-on effects. Okay. So I don't suspect we'll get that big rebound.
And with Trump saying he wants tariffs to be permanent, that rebound could take months before financial markets and trade markets rebound with it.
That's Chris Clover reporting for CBC. One way to stay financially sound is to do free stuff. You can do that now. You just might catch that total lunar eclipse. We spoke to a local astronomer about the makings of a rare celestial alignment.
When the moon goes behind, it in turn passes into the Earth's shadow, and again we would have an eclipse. This time we call it a lunar eclipse because the moon is the one that's disappearing from view. Of course, the moon doesn't give off its own light, it's reflecting sunlight, right? So when it passes behind the Earth, usually the moon is full because the front side of the moon is being lit up by the sun and it's reflecting that light towards us. So you'd think you would see a full moon, and we will see a full moon tonight. However, this time around, the moon will pass directly into the Earth's shadow, and for a short period of time, it will pass through the shadow and that light will be blocked off. And so the moon will, in a sense, disappear from our view for a short period of time. The Earth has an atmosphere around it, and that atmosphere acts like a little lens, bending some of the sun's light into the shadow. Now, it turns out our atmosphere works like a prism. It bends light differently so that it takes the sun's light and bends it into all the rainbow colors. A lot of the rainbow colors get scattered in the atmosphere, but the longer wavelengths, the red and the orange colors, end up bending around the Earth and being pulled into the Earth's shadow. And so when the moon enters that dark cone, it actually turns orangey red. There's a little bit of light coming in. By the time we get to 1:09 a.m., that's when the moon is going to enter that inner shadow, and you're going to see the moon starting to turn orange and getting very, very dark in that lower left corner.
Nothing like a spooky moon to coincide with everything that's happening out in the world right now. If you got story ideas that we should know about, send us an email, windsor@cbc.ca, or flip us a text, 519-984-2051. Colette Kennedy joins us now. Today, the first day I got a sunburn, I think, this year. We're putting that thing down the top of the noggin, if anybody can make it out there. A little redder than it should be. But you weren't joking, a lot of sun.
Yeah, I've got three things. Sunscreen, sunscreen, sunscreen. Hat. No, the third one's a hat. Yes, we are getting to that time of year where we are talking about that sun angle being a little bit sharper, the UV index going up, and so that risk is there. Our current temperature still holding on to some double digits, 10 degrees for Windsor, London as well, and sandwiched in between there, Chatham-Kent at 9 degrees with 6 coming in Sarnia. Bright skies, yes, a little bit of hazy cloud, that milky appearance to the sky. That's just some high thin cirrus clouds, so really pleasant conditions until the sun sets, and the wind's relatively light as well. We get to enjoy this weather through tonight and into tomorrow and part of tomorrow night, and then the weekend there is a special weather statement, and that is for the rain that is to come, with some localized thunderstorm activity. Means some of the areas could get some higher amounts of rainfall, that 20 to 40 millimeters, and that's where we could also see some localized flooding as the ground is still relatively firm and solid. And a little further north, there's actually still quite a bit of snowpack to melt as well with the mild temperatures. So those are the risks with traveling, and that's really Saturday and then through the night Saturday into Sunday. But just checking out tonight for the lunar eclipse, the conditions are good with mostly clear skies. Even if there's a little bit of cloud, it will be kind of that veil that you can see through nicely. Tomorrow morning, a beautiful start to things, although we'll be closer to that freezing mark, not quite there, but closer to it, a little chillier. And then we're really going to heat things up into the afternoon hours. I'm excited to show you the temperatures in just a moment if you didn't see at the top of the show. And then just a look at that line of storms. This is early Saturday, a wave, and then we could even get some sunny breaks and then some more showers and thunderstorms kind of popping up. But as we go through Saturday night into Sunday, we get some more organized and heavier rain coming on through as well. So all of that has to make its way through. Right now, you know, it's still a day or two off. We're looking at models showing that 20 to just over 30 millimeters. But as I said, the special weather statement could put it a little higher than that. Your temperature tonight, 2 degrees. We're going to hit that around 6, 7 a.m. And so with that, it'll take a little time to warm up, but it's certainly going to 20 degrees for the high tomorrow afternoon. Just such a nice day. Still mild into the weekend, however, breezy and some active weather coming.
Okay, not bad for that Monday to St. Patrick's Day, eh?
Yes, there we go. A little bit cooler, but looking pretty good.
Not bad. Wear a sweater while you drink. Thanks for this, Colette. Have a good night, everybody.